Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 196 of Let's Go Racing. Tyler Jones, Dominic Aragon here with you as we are going to be joined by Ryan Kemna of the RacingExperts.com. We'll get his thoughts on everything that went down at Richmond and look ahead to this weekend's race at Daytona, the final race before the start of the 2025 NASCAR playoffs. We'll break that down for you coming up later on in the show. We'll also have a look at our news and notes, plenty of headlines when we're talking schedule, lawsuits, and more. And then we'll get to our mailbag segment at the end of today's show. Dominic joins me right now. Dom, let's start right off the top with the win for Austin Dillon. Much different than the last go-round when he won Richmond last year, as he led 107 laps. No controversy. Was the best car, the best driver in the field on Saturday night. Just a dominating performance from Austin Dillon, which is kind of uncharacteristic for him. We don't talk about him having nights like this too often, and you could argue this was the best performance he's had in his entire career, what we saw on Saturday.
Dominating of that three car, and there was a graphic somebody shared too, Tyler, about how the three car had not led as many laps since the Dale Earnhardt victory, and I can't remember if it was maybe Bristol 99 or even Daytona 98, but it had been a long time. Case in point, that the three car had circled at the front that many times, and had shades of last year because Austin Dillon did the same thing, but we had that last minute caution, and of course the controversy surrounding last year. Not the case this year, but what makes it interesting too, did you catch what he said at his Victory Lane interview, Tyler, about how he was racing and what he was racing with?
Remind the folks.
A broken rib. And he went in to talk more about that in the media center. He didn't really talk too much on TV about it, but it sounded like he was trying to put something away, kind of like a run-of-the-mill type of injury rather, where he was putting something away in his hunting case. And it sounded like he fell. Broke the seventh rib on his right side, if I remember correctly, but had been racing like that the last 2 weeks. So Iowa, Watkins Glen, and now Richmond. So to have an even gutsier performance, to know the circumstances that he went through, very, very, very interesting to see that three car lead the way he did and make the playoff race a little more interesting.
So with Austin Dillon getting this win, even though there wasn't controversy, there is a question that does get raised of a guy that was 28th in points behind SVG, might I add as well. Is he deserving of a playoff spot? And I was talking to a friend of the show, Jonathan Feld, about this. He raised this question to me the other night. And the point I made, Dominic, was that it's not Austin Dillon's fault that the system is the way it is, that he did what he needed to do to make the postseason. And the other point I would add is that here's what we're talking about, okay, to kind of put this in perspective. You compare him with Chris Buescher, and Chris Buescher's had a solid season. He hasn't got to victory lane, but I don't think anybody is sitting here saying that Chris Buescher is a championship threat. And so let's just say, for all intents and purposes, that race knocked out Chris Buescher and put Austin Dillon in. Does it really change anything for the playoffs? Not one bit. Chris Buescher was not going to win the NASCAR Cup Series championship. In the history of this entire playoff, we have only had one champion that did not win a race in the regular season and went on to win the title in the playoff / chase area. That was Tony Stewart in 2011 when he rattled off 5 wins in the chase, and he's one of the greatest drivers to ever do it. No offense to Chris Buescher, but he's no Tony Stewart by any stretch of the imagination, and I think Chris would tell you that too. So I don't have a problem with it, Dom. It's the system that's in place, and it doesn't really change anything big picture either.
They played by the rules that were given to them. It's the same conversation we had all playoff and all off season last year about Joey Logano. Merchant championship run, the way he did it. His team has figured out this system, the way that NASCAR has laid out the rules. They played in their sandbox, and they win. And that's what Austin Dillon did. That's what SVG has done. The fans are going to complain either way, Tyler. It's all noise. The drivers are just doing, and the teams are just doing what NASCAR's laid out in front of them. So job all done for doing what they have set out to do. NASCAR fans have said for years, Tyler, we've seen the complaints on X. They want winning to be rewarded. Well, they have it. They've had this system for now 11, 12 NASCAR seasons. The system rewards awards. This system rewards winning, and we saw a clear case of that Saturday night. And it's not like he didn't lead one lap, Tyler. He led a fourth of the race.
Right. And then I go back to the Tony Stewart comparison as well. Um, that was also a different format where you only had 12 drivers
Mhm.
in the chase back then. And so Tony proved himself. This is different. We're talking about spots 15 and 16 and 17 and all that right now.
Yeah.
So it's a different beast. Does it suck for Chris? Yes, but Chris has had 25 opportunities to get a win, and he's failed to do so. And he still has a chance at Daytona this upcoming week. One more thing I want to bring up when it comes to Austin Dillon here. Austin Dillon gets a lot of flack from NASCAR fans for various different reasons of driving the 3 car that had not been driven since the late Dale Earnhardt, racing for his grandfather and being a Nepo baby of sorts there. And the argument has been made that, hey, he's only in that ride because of who his grandfather is. And there's a lot of truth to that. But all in all, Dom, I understand that Austin Dillon hasn't been a championship caliber racer, but I think he's better than what he's given credit for when you're looking at a guy that's got 6 career wins, multiple playoff appearances. He's won the Daytona 500, he's won the Coke 600. Austin Dillon, I think, has left his mark on this sport. I think it's been a fine career, not a great career by any stretch of the imagination. He's got an Xfinity title to his name. I don't know how much longer Austin Dillon is going to do this. I think his future is in management and ownership with RCR, and based on what he did to recruit Kyle Busch, I would think he has a very bright future. But if this was the last career win we ever see from Austin Dillon, which it could be as far as we know, I don't think he has anything to hang his hat on. I think he's had a solid career from start to finish, no matter what people say.
He has 6 more victories combined than the people on this panel and most of the people that cover the sport, Tyler. So something to be said about 6 victories to make it to the top level of motorsport and stock car racing in our country. And there's only 3,000 people, roughly, that have ever gotten the chance to get behind the wheel of a cup car in a points race, and let alone just over 200 that have ever won a race. Austin Dillon's done that 6 times. No matter what happens here on out, yeah, he hasn't won multiple races in a year. He's never finished top 10 in points, but the playoff appearances do speak for something. The clutch moments have to count for something as well.
And one more thing, I'll say to Austin Dillon too. RCR has been so up and down, and not of his own doing, of the equipment and the situation that he's been under. I look at that and I give Austin Dillon credit, Dom, that he's won these 6 races and he's made these playoff appearances in spite of his situation. If Austin Dillon had been with a Joe Gibbs or a Hendrick Motorsports in his career, I'm not saying he would have won a championship, but I very well do believe that he would have won at least a handful of more races than what he's done. I think he's a product of some bad luck at times.
Sure. But we'll talk like too about teams that have gone down with the ship. We saw that happen with Roush throughout the 2010s. I've been a firm believer too. When you add names like that, a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. given a Stewart Haas car in the mid 2010s would have made a lot more noise. Austin Dillon in the same situation.
Yeah. All right. Dom, tell us about our next guest.
Our next guest joins us from the racingexperts.com. He's been a part of our online NASCAR News Motorsports out for the better half of 2025. Hails from the great state of Minnesota. And Tyler, I don't know if that's good or bad for me as being a Packers fan, him being a Vikings fan, but I think we can put our differences aside, of course, because motorsports brings everyone together. Ryan Kemna joins us on the show this week. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us here on Let's Go Racing.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we can set our differences aside because there's only about 2, maybe 3 nights of a year that we're at odds.
And I will say, for full disclosure, Cradle Packers fan, love my Green Bay Packers. Well, may not love, but I really do enjoy my Green Bay Packer football. There have been a few times where I have not rooted for the Packers. And I was salty about the Brett Favre thing. A lot of people who know me know that. I've rooted every single time Brett Favre suited up as a Viking and they played the Green Bay Packers. I was pulling for Brett Favre. So I will for the record say that.
That's great. I think we should talk about Richmond a little bit more.
Yeah, a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah, back on Austin Dillon. That puts him, the 6 wins puts him at 80th all time in the wins list. That puts him ahead of names such as Tiny Lund at 5, Jeremy Mayfield at 5, and 92 champion Alan Kowicki at 5. So even if that might be his last race, that's still something to say, hey, Austin Dillon is in the top 100 in all-time wins and ahead of a champion.
Well, and I look at this, guys, and very curious to get your opinion here, Ryan. I think we get so caught up in guys that have the Hall of Fame resumes or are competing for championships year in, year out that we kind of lose track of the story of some of these other drivers and their careers they had. And the truth of the matter is that not everybody can compete for a championship. Not everybody is going to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. That is a prestigious group. Austin Dillon will not be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. No, he's not even going to come close. But I think that he can hold his head up high, that he has put together a solid career, that he's worked his ass off week in and week out, and that he's had some wins to show for it and some playoff appearances. I think that, sure, it was a big deal, him in the three car. I would even take it a step further, Ryan, that had he chosen another number, if he drove the number 2 or number 4 car, we would be having a different conversation entirely about Austin Dillon.
Yeah, if he drops the 33 car and just, fills in what he had been driving in Xfinity and some of trucks up to that point, yeah, the pressure's off his shoulders a little bit. Obviously, being the grandson of Richard Childress, that puts a lot on him already, but reviving that number definitely puts an asterisk on anything he does and any expectations that he can be afforded. So that's definitely a good argument to have.
And on top of that, too, Dom, I would add that it didn't do him any favors replacing Kevin Harvick either, a Hall of Famer, a champion in his own right. And then the last couple of years, constantly being compared to Kyle Busch, a two-time champion in the sport. I mean, there was just a lot of other factors outside of Austin Dillon's control.
Yeah, too many. It's honestly like Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s situation where you have this big name to live up to, or Richard Petty with Kyle Petty, and there's so much surrounding you and so much greatness. Plus, he was hyped up really well. You look at how well his Truck Series career was, the Xfinity Series. It seemed like if he continues on this trajectory, he's RCR's answer. He could be the first driver to win a championship in all three national touring series, and it just hasn't happened. The numbers haven't been there over the last 12, 13 years, and if Austin Dillon puts more than 12 top tens together in a year, that's a career year, essentially. But again, going back, the pressure. Richard Childress' grandson. You replace Kevin Harvick. Jeff Burton's out the door. You bring back the number 3 car. The 3 car returns with you. And the last time that car was on track was with Dale Earnhardt. So many things that you've just had the weight of the world on you, but you're still able to deliver in big moments like they have. They've won a Daytona to get into the playoffs. They've won the 500, like you said, 6 career wins. We don't give Austin Dillon enough credit. And you're right. A lot of those wins, maybe we've seen the last one. Maybe we've seen more wins behind him than ahead of him. Certainly more starts behind him, I think, than ahead of him. Those management days are probably getting closer than ever. We know he's back next year, but has to be a nice shot in the arm, too, if you're Austin Dillon. Kind of takes a little bit of that pressure off. Not only for this week or the playoffs, but the fact that I can still do this. I can still go out and give an old school Saturday night ass whooping on the racetrack.
Well, and I think if you're an RCR fan, if you're an Austin Dillon fan, one thing you can be optimistic about. I was listening to Austin Dillon post race, Ryan, and one of the things he was talking about was how different he wants to do things and how much pushback he gets from his grandfather, and that he's always trying to push and get more out of him. And we mentioned his recruitment of Kyle Busch, that he's probably the number one reason why Kyle Busch ended up at RCR. I think if you're an Austin Dillon supporter, RCR supporter, that whenever the day comes that Richard Childress steps down and Austin Dillon is in charge, or at least is high in the pecking order there within the organization, I think the future is going to be better off. That's not a knock on Richard. Richard's a Hall of Famer in his own right, one of the best owners in the history of the sport. But I think we can say, with all due respect, the sport has passed Richard Childress by, and that there are better days ahead with Austin Dillon eventually leading this organization, Ryan.
You could just tell that Austin Dillon's ready for it. I mean, he's in his mid 30s. He's 35 years old. He's been around the sport. He's been in the Cup Series for a while. He's now arguably in that veteran role. We might not know how loud his voice is in those drivers' meetings and behind closed doors, but with how he handled the Austin Hill situation a few weeks ago and trying to mentor some of the younger guys in RCR, it just seems like that's the natural next step. As much as we all know it, uh, we don't know how long he'll have left in that ride, and you could kind of see by him celebrating that it's weighing on him pretty heavy.
Yeah,
Probably
I think
soaking it in
so.
a little bit more. Yeah, knowing that the driving days, that day when that fire suit gets hung up is a lot closer for sure.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And so now you go forward from here. And when I look at that organization, let's kind of talk big picture for a moment, Ryan. Um, Austin Dillon's coming back, Kyle Busch, they're both coming back next year. But before Saturday night's race at Richmond, this organization as a whole had totally underperformed all season long. You could argue that Kyle Busch should have won at Coda, but that was really the only time that this organization looked like that they had winning capabilities. The old saying is winning cures everything, but this is just one race, and they have good history at Richmond. Will we see this be the start of a turnaround? Will the three car step up their performance into the playoffs? Will we see the eight car potentially win this week and get in the postseason and have a strong finish to the year? Do you think this is a turning point for this team, Ryan, or do you see it otherwise?
At this point, I'd take it week by week. The ECR engines have been by far second among the Chevrolets. I mean, of two right now. And going to Daytona won't really tell us much of anything. Those ECR engines and those packages have actually been more beneficial to them than a lot of their intermediate and short track packages. I also think that Richmond is very lightning in the bottle for them. They got that engineer from JGR over there early last season, and that helped propel their program at Richmond. And it obviously helped them again because they use a lot of same notes, those tire packages, and the aero package was the same. And you get positive momentum from this week, and you get positive momentum hopefully from next week for their sake. But looking at their speed at intermediate tracks and even some of the road courses with Kyle Busch over the last few road courses, it just hasn't been there. So I don't think it will continue.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think it feels like a shot in the dark, a one-hit wonder of sorts for that team. But it was a great night nonetheless. And let's talk Kyle Busch for a moment here, Ryan. It's been a while since he's been in victory lane. Uh, he's got one last shot to get into victory lane before the playoffs here. Do you think that Kyle Busch is gonna figure something out? Could we see him in victory lane in Daytona and get in the playoff and make a playoff push, or does that look unlikely here? What do you think about what's going on with that A team? They had speed on Saturday night, and then just some unfortunate things happened there.
I have to take us back to last year. God, he was close. How close was he to beating Harrison Burton there? If that caution and things play out a little bit differently last year, he could have been in the playoffs last year, and we would have been like, oh, yeah, Kyle Busch's streak is very much alive. However, right now, he's been really frustrated with his performances. I've personally seen him in the garage area wrecking cars after a practice or qualifying and having to start back at square one. He needs to have a clean weekend. And he has shown us last year's race that he can provide a clean weekend and really contend. So if they can bring the same sort of magic that they did last year, and of course with Austin Dillon winning Richmond this past weekend, spirits are high and their whole focus turns towards Kyle and making that attempt happen.
The other thing I want to bring
Yeah,
up too, Ryan, is we look at Daytona. You see a lot of teammates, a lot of manufacturers working together. Now that we know that Austin Dillon's in the playoffs, and just thinking big picture with the RCR camp, how much, and it may be an obvious question, maybe it's multifaceted, but how much do we see Austin Dillon try to be the best teammate ever and try to push Kyle to the win? Of course, knowing you still want to win and go back to back, of course, but you think for the greater of the organization, how much do you think that weighs on Austin Dillon, and how much do we see that come into play this weekend?
With how his decision making has been throughout the year of leaning into more of the mentor and veteran role, I think he's fully prepared to help Kyle try to get it in for the sake of RCR. He knows that Richmond was his track. He really did well. And getting that 8 car in is the next thing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the NASCAR playoff points heading into this weekend at Daytona. William Byron's already clinched the regular season title. Um, he'll be the number 1 seed and everything. Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Austin Cindric, Josh Berry, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Austin Dillon all have clinched playoff spots with wins. And then there were 2. Tyler Reddick is 89 above the cutoff. Alex Bowman is 60 above the cutoff. And then on the outside is everyone else: Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece, Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, Eric Jones, and the list goes on and on. Chris Buescher 60 points out, everyone else in a must-win situation. But the way that the points shake out, Dom, a couple things here. Tyler Reddick, 89 and above. Um, he pretty much, if he starts the race, he's in the field. Um, Basically, he's got to finish. He can't get crushed by Alex Bowman and then there be a new winner. Otherwise, he's in good shape. But then you look at the others. Chris Buescher, I know he's 60 points out, but he pretty much is in a must win just like
He
everybody
is.
else. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're Reddick and Bowman, I think that you still go for the win if you can. And then everyone else that's on the outside pretty much is looking to get in a victory lane on Saturday night.
You're Tyler Reddick, you're racing for stage points. We were talking last week. Oh, he's pretty much a virtual lock. We could probably all but confirm. Oh, because you're right. That situation where you have a new winner and Bowman takes more stage points, or Reddick gets 1 point because he finishes 38th, and Bowman had a 21st place day with stage points, and a new winner, you're out. The guy that's been top 10 points most of the year. So there's so many tricky situations. You have 14 winners in 2025, but that also means that you have 22 drivers who can win and get in. And we've seen this happen time and time again in Daytona. And there's so many drivers in the back that desperation is going to absolutely ramp up Saturday night. It's going to be a chaotic Daytona day, NASCAR race.
Ryan, of those guys on the outside, who's got your eye? Who do you think's got the best shot to potentially get into victory lane and steal one of these playoff spots?
Well, we brought up Kyle Busch. I think Kyle Busch will be one of those for sure. Not only does he have Austin Dillon this weekend, he actually does have Austin Hill in the 33. So they do have another car to help with that draft and the pit strategy. Otherwise, if I'm looking at the Toyota camp, Riley Herbst is an underdog. He's not sitting well in points, obviously, so he needs this win. He performed pretty well at the plate tracks. Xfinity, he's done pretty good at plate tracks as well. So could see that. Otherwise, you can't rule out any of the college cars at a plate track as well. I mean, just their program and for some reason, just their identity of being able to work together and run up front is just something that honestly is lost art with teams nowadays.
I'll give you another one to watch, guys. Be curious what both your opinions are on this. This guy's willing to do anything. We've seen it all season long. He's been the breakout performer of the year. Um, I got to go with Carson Hocevar. I think Carson Hocevar, he's uh, shown that he's fearless, that he does not fall for anything. The moment is not too big for him. This could be a perfect time, I think, for Carson Hocevar to potentially get something done. And with the Chevy and the Hendrick power that they have behind him, I mean, he's going to have a ton of speed. I would if I would think that Ryan, it's going to be one of two things for Carson Hocevar. Either he's contending for that win or he's going to wreck out, one of the two. I think he's going to leave everything on the line.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. It's checkers or records for Carson Hocevar. We saw he had that raw speed and drafting capabilities at Atlanta, first go around Atlanta this year, and he makes the wrong pick and decides to push the 20. And even if he went 3 wide, he could have had it himself. So that's definitely a possibility. Spire's been a lot faster than they have shown early on. So I think that is a good pick.
What about You, Dom, what do you think about the idea of Carson Hocevar? And if not Carson Hocevar, who else catches your attention?
Man, it was 22 guys. You laugh all you want, but you brought up Riley Herbst, another name that I think of too. He cannot be underestimated on the restricted plate tracks. The whole why not us mentality around Rick Ware Racing and Cody Ware. This race, he finished top five last year. He was top 10 the year before as well. There's something about Cody Ware figuring out the super speedway tracks at the end of the races. But I look in that Ford camp too, and maybe a more obvious pick would be somebody of the RFK camp. You know those cars are going to be dialed in and working together. We saw Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski essentially control this race 2 years ago. Wouldn't shock me to see one of those RFK cars pull into victory lane on Saturday. And Brad Keselowski's gotten it done at this track before. And we've seen the turnaround. How they've run the last 10 weeks is probably the speed we expected the entire season. But that six cars clicking off is faster than ever. I look at that Ford camp, Tyler. There's going to be some good things coming out of that Ford team and RFK on Saturday night.
Well, Ryan, if we don't see one of those RFK cars get into victory lane and get in the playoff, what a disappointment that would be after how much better they've run in the summer months, all three of them collectively, and got off to a slow start to this year, but they've all run better. Brad and Ryan, especially here. And it seemed like just a couple weeks ago, they were in a decent spot to get a car or two in the playoff. Now we're looking at that if one of them doesn't get to victory lane on Saturday night, they all might be sitting home. I mean, what a turn of events and an abject failure potentially for that team.
Yeah, I'd say their expectations heading into the season was to get two or three cars into the playoffs, and they definitely have that capability. If we look at just the regular point standings right now, the 17 and 60 are well within that top 16 threshold, but that's not how our playoff system works. Heading out of Iowa, I had talked to Brad Kozlowski and Ryan Priest that whole weekend. I talked to Brad both days actually. They still seem pretty optimistic because at that point they were going to Watkins Glen where Buescher was the defending winner, and then obviously Richmond this past Saturday where Priest was on pole and it led a bunch of laps at the start of that race. And of course, Daytona, where Keselowski is a proven winner there, and how well those cars have worked together over the last few years, and especially getting that third car on board, you can see that they can do more with each other. So it's definitely a disappointment to potentially not even have any of those cars.
What a career
Yeah.
year Ryan Priest is having, and he might not even make the playoffs. That 60 team is starting to pick up the raw speed. Tyler, you had said on the show last week, or had posed the question: does RFK and the 60 team are they showing that run up front speed? And we saw that on Saturday night. And granted, short track racing, there's a lot more intermediate tracks we're going to deal with, but that 60 team is making swings in the right direction, and it might just be a little too late. There's going to be good teams that miss the playoffs.
I'm rooting for chaos. Let's get the Cody Ware victory this week.
I think we'd
Yeah, that
all be entertained with that.
yeah, I
Yes.
think I think that will really prove Denny Hamlin's point about pretty much everything he's ever said. If Cody Ware and that 51 team finds victory lane this Saturday night.
Yeah, I got an email from their PR team at Racing this week saying, why not us? And I think that would be the only thing that could take Harrison Burton's win last year to another level is if we see Cody Ware potentially crack the playoffs with that. But we shall see.
Love that
Daytona,
mentality too. That's good. That's good mentality.
I'm
it is.
wondering if we can get some free Arby's beef and cheddars if he wins.
They have the meats.
They do have the meats.
I love their mozzarella sticks, but that's a whole nother story. Um, Daytona, the last race before the playoff. Traditionally, this has been the 4th of July race, but we've seen it shift in recent years, and we'll talk about the schedule coming out in just a moment. But it appears it's going to stay this way of being the last race before the playoffs. And Ryan, let me get your thoughts. Daytona, I know that fans have complained about racing the last few years. There's too much fuel mileage going on, and drivers not running 100% to save on fuel and all that. But we've seen this track put on a show, and one could argue that the race with these implications here, this race compared to the Daytona 500 on some years, if not most years, has been better even than the Daytona 500. I would expect this race to be a show on Saturday night.
I think that's a valid take on what this race is about. With this current playoff structure, having this home run or strikeout type of race be Daytona before the playoffs is perfect. I know that a lot of people like to harp online about, well, it's tradition to have Daytona over the fourth, and that NASCAR should go back to its roots when it comes to scheduling. But when you have a playoff system like this, a super speedway race, and especially one at Daytona that a lot of drivers love showing up to and love being under the lights, it just feels right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it gives you hope. It gives you something to look forward to. You could be having the worst season ever, or things haven't gone your way, but in August, you still have one legitimate chance to win a way into the playoffs come no matter how good or bad your season has been. We all want some hope, and this gives the teams that. It has to be a big morale boost throughout the regular season compared to years when this race was not at the end of the regular season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
say that the Southern 500 now fills this role. We are not talking about Cody Ware or Riley Herbst potentially squeaking into the playoffs. This gives an open playbook to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love it.
Dom, what's kind of your expectations for Saturday night?
It wouldn't shock me if we see a big crash in stage one and then kind of some calm racing, some fuel mileage, a little bit of everything what we've gotten used to with this next gen vehicle, and then chaos at the end of the race with some overtime, barring any weather. And now I haven't checked the weather at the time of this taping, but assuming we go a full distance on Saturday night, got to think overtime's in the cards. Plus, Caesar Sportsbook, I think, has that at minus 250 or a really good percentage of that happening if you're a betting person. So, overtime probably is going to happen. You got to be expecting to save fuel. It's going to come down to restarts and who you line up with and where your friends are, like we saw last year, like we saw in 2022. There's a lot of cards to be dealt on Saturday night, and there's not going to be any shortage of the chaos you're talking about, Tyler.
Yeah, I think so. Ryan, we'll give our picks coming up later, but what's your take? What's kind of your expectations for Saturday?
I agree with Dominic. Just there's going to be chaos at some point. Will it happen in stage one? Will it happen in stage two? That's for how the pack decides. I would rather think that it's going to be more chaotic towards the latter half of stage three and probably for stage two. But who knows? Maybe someone like a Riley Herbst or a Ryan Preece will try to make a run as a practice run at the end of stage one and something goes wrong. So I would expect a lot of chaos. I would expect most likely a surprise winner.
Yeah, we shall see how it all plays out. Let's move on to our headlines, our news and notes for this week. Dom, got plenty to discuss. Where we want to start?
That is the golden question. Where do we start? Because we could go to the courtroom, we could go to 2026, we could look at Daytona, but I think it's appropriate we start in the courtroom and some of the latest developments there with the 2311 Front Row Motorsports and NASCAR lawsuit that has been playing out across the calendar year of 2025. So, but at the time of the taping here on Tuesday night, August 19th, various outlets are reporting, including the New York Times, Sporting News, NBC Sports, about some of the different filings that NASCAR has had in the courtroom. And one of the many nuggets that has come out of news over the last few days that NASCAR's new filings in the preliminary injunction hearing talk about how there have been many eager potential entrants who want to obtain charters, and that during this preliminary injunction, NASCAR could begin the process of selling the six available charters, the three each that Front Row and 2311 have been fighting desperately to hang on to. Now, NASCAR, I believe the documents were redacted on who the various people and teams and entities who were wanting to purchase these charters could potentially be. We all know the trial is set to begin December 1st. We're still 3 months away from that. But throughout that, too, NASCAR also notes in their documents, according to NBC Sports, that NASCAR has increased annual payouts to teams over time with the initial charter agreement in 2016 and the re-upped agreement in 2025, as well as NASCAR dismissing the claims that they are not a monopoly because they allow drivers and teams and competitors to race in the Cars Tour, which is owned by Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Burton, Kevin Harvick, and Justin Marks, races across the Carolinas and believe regional series throughout the United States as well. And is also not wanting to do business with people who are wanting to sue him, is what some of the documents say. So again, a lot that would unpacking here with the court filings and what NASCAR is going through with all of these teams. But Tyler, we said this was going to get uglier. It's getting uglier, and we're still 3 months away from the first day of the trial.
I feel like, Ryan, I'd be curious what your thoughts is on this, that NASCAR is trying to find anything that they can chew at this juncture. And a lot of this stuff, the things that they have brought in as new evidence or new things, is stuff we've already known, uh, that they kind of, just dug themselves, found, try to throw it out there, see what kind of sticks on the wall to help their case of some sorts. And I don't think, even though you could say they're winning right now because those teams are open teams and don't have charters, the outlook on this heading into this trial in December, if we ever get there, still looks bleak for NASCAR. They might have the edge at the moment, but I still feel like that they're just trying to grab onto anything that they can hold on to. What's kind of your thoughts on where this legal fight stands right now, Ryan?
Yeah, there's a lot of he said, she said type of jargon going about, trying to find anything that they can in writing and any sort of minor thing that might have disputed a contract or might have voided anything. And I think Denny Hamlin said it best. We will figure this out in December. This is going to get drug out. It's already been drawn out this far. And this has been drawn out since, gosh, December of last year is when all this stuff started. So we're all going to figure it out at one point. And I'd say right now the needle definitely goes into 2311 front row's favor, but that can change within a week.
Yeah. Um, Dom, based on where we stand right now, who do you think is is feeling optimistic, or should either one of them be feeling optimistic or not optimistic? What's kind of your lay of the situation right now?
Man, my outsider perspective, I feel like the cautiously optimistic optimism, if you want to call it, would probably fall in the hands of the teams because as this gets closer to the trial date, Tyler, like we had Jerry Jordan and Brock Beard on the show a few weeks ago, and they were talking about this, how the discovery process, we may not necessarily know what's going to happen until the trial, but that discovery process, it works both ways. Where NASCAR gets to subpoena and request records from the teams was my understanding, but it's also the same in reverse. So, of course, a lot of things are redacted, but this thing goes to trial. In my opinion, NASCAR has a lot more to lose than what these teams do because you're talking teams that have invested tens of millions, of hundreds of millions of dollars over the 20 years, if you include front row and 2311. But you look at NASCAR, an 80 plus year history, essentially with billions of dollars invested. Just doing the math there, NASCAR has definitely a lot more to lose. And you don't know how it's all going to be presented as far as how the jury reacts. There's so many factors, so many layers, and how a jury interprets the information, the things they request, it's how the judge might rule down on things. It's a very, very uncharted territory without a compass, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, and we'll have to wait and see how this all ultimately plays
How do
out.
you see it
Dom,
playing out, Tyler? How do you see it playing out if you had to give a guess?
I think we see a settlement before December. It might even be days before the trial actually starts, but I do think we will see a settlement. 2311 and Front Row will get their money back from the purse, and they will keep their charters, and they'll come up with some deal of some sorts. I do not think this is going to trial, but we'll wait and see how it all plays out. Dom, what else going on? The Denny Hamlin, he was saying that the schedule was a way to kind of hide from what's actually going on.
Called it a distraction, I believe. It was the tweet I had seen correctly from Tuesday. But Jordan Bianchi of the New York Times and The Athletic reporting on the 2026 schedule. So at the time of this taping, no official NASCAR schedule has been released as of August 19th. However, the schedule we have in hand, again, reporting from Jordan Bianchi, who's pretty good at getting these things mapped out and confirmed. A lot of the schedule is staying the same. Some of the stuff we do is obvious. The San Diego race on Father's Day weekend in June. The finale moving back for its 1 year deal to Homestead Miami Speedway, also having an Easter off weekend, and most of the staple of the schedule that you see throughout the spring, summer, and fall. But nonetheless, Tyler, really cool to see Daytona returning, in my opinion, as the regular season ender date. Darlington there with Labor Day weekend and keeping that tradition rolling as a playoff starter. You have Darlington, Gateway, and Bristol as your round of 16. Kansas, Las Vegas, and the Charlotte Roval in your round of 12. And then Phoenix moves from the season finale to the opening race of the round of 8, race 33 of 36. Talladega stays at the same spot as this year. Martinsville will close out the round of 8, this is race 35, and of course, Homestead returning as the championship race weekend. But looking through that schedule, Tyler, two off weekends. You have the off weekend on August 2nd, and then you have the off weekend April 5th with Easter. So at least there's another break throughout the season, but those are the big things that pop out, at least to me, early on.
There's a big one you're missing, and it's maybe the dumbest one of the schedule of all. Ryan, why in the hell are we going to Dover for the All-Star race? We're
I
going
don't
to race
know.
this on a Sunday afternoon. We're going to go to small market Dover, Delaware. I understand, moving North Wilkesboro to the regular season schedule and all that. That good for North Wilkesboro. That's cool. But if you're Dover, you had a good crowd for that regular season race, and this is your one race of the year, and you look at the All-Star race format, it's a shorter race. You don't want to be running somewhere like Dover that thrives on long runs. To me, this just doesn't make sense in any capacity whatsoever. I know that SMI has the rights to the All-Star race, but of all the SMI tracks you could have gone to, you choose Dover, freaking Delaware? What are we doing, Ryan?
There is a few things about the schedule I don't like. We'll start at Dover. Dover being the All Star race does not make any sense. That race thrives on long runs, as you said. Tower fall off is a major thing at Dover, and having the natural attrition of the monster is the big play. That's why it's called the Monster Mile, because it eats you up the longer you run. And if you don't take care of your tires, or if you come off a corner, especially off a too high, you're going to get eaten up. So not utilizing the natural fun factor of Dover by placing it in the All-Star race is not good. I like the fact that North Wilkesboro got its actual date. But as of right now, the car isn't tailor-made for North Wilkesboro. We haven't had that great of events. I believe more times than not, it's been pole to victory in those All-Star races. I know Kyle Larson definitely was. And it's it's not going to perform over a long run. Hopefully, they bring a good tire compound, and I'm proven wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong by NASCAR to put on a fun event. One other thing that's really bothering me about the schedule, I love that there's two breaks, but the second break for the August 2nd weekend pushes back Iowa Speedway to the 9th, and it pushes back Richmond to that following weekend. Now, the nice thing about the schedule this weekend is that Iowa fell directly on the same weekend as Knoxville Nationals. That allowed Kyle Larson, Ricky Stenhouse, and multiple others just go attend, watch, or participate. Next year, that now pushes it a week back, and it doesn't line up. And so Larson, Stenhouse, and maybe any others who wants to go do it. I know that Bell wants to do it sometimes. I know Briscoe's been interested. They can't. And that bothers me as a pure racing fan.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand all those things that you're coming from there. Dom, any thoughts on the schedule? Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, the North Wilkesboro thing, I definitely had missed that at first glance, and that'll be the first time that it returns as a points race since '96. So that's what that's gonna be 30 years. 30 years since the last time Jeff Gordon won that race, their final North Wilkesboro race. So that'll be cool to see how that plays out as a points deal. But the Dover move is interesting. SMI could have gone so many places. I guess credit to them for trying something out of the box. Maybe it's a massive success. Maybe it's a big flop and a massive.
No, don't give him credit. It's a dumb move. No credit from me.
All right, we know how Tyler feels on the move. I guess we'll see back a year from now how this all plays out.
Yeah. It's a head scratcher, I can tell you that much. Dom, what else we got?
Before we get to our picks, let's take a look at the entry list. Of course, we're going to have a full field. I think this is the 5th time this year, Tyler, that the NASCAR Cup Series will feature a full field with 40 drivers. Of course, you have the 6 open entries between Front Row Motorsports and 2311, but you also have Austin Hill, which we previously mentioned in the show. He's going to be driving the number 33 for Richard Childress Racing. Joey Gase returns to the number 44 New York Racing Team Chevrolet. Willed that car, I believe, to a 19th place finish last year in this race. Casey Mears, who is eyeing his 500th start at some point, will get one start closer to doing that as he drives Carl Long's number 66 Ford with the Garage 66 entry. And BJ McLeod, always driving that number 78 for his own team, Live Fast Motorsports, will be on the entry list and in the field on Saturday night. I guess to the both of you, before we get to the odds, of all of those open 4 cars, who stands out the most? Who can make the most noise on Saturday night?
I think for me, it's Austin Dillon and or not Austin, Austin Hill. Right there in the RCR camp. We know that the speed he's going to have, and he is going to be needed to help Kyle Busch get into the playoff. I would be shocked if he won. I think his number one objective is to help out Kyle Busch, but I would expect that barring a wreck, that we see Austin Hill running up front to do whatever he can to help out Kyle Busch. What say you, Ryan?
I like that Austin Hill pick too. I mean, it just makes sense given the vehicle that he's been provided. I mean, the ECR engines, while not the best engine in the Chevrolet camp, has been proven to work just fine at these plate tracks. And being Austin Hill and knowing how good he is at Daytona, it just gives him a leg up over the other open cars.
Yeah, yeah. What else on the odds? How they looking, Dom?
You like to guess, Tyler. So there's 3 drivers that are all co-favorites at Daytona this weekend. I'll give you a hint. They're all on the 3 same team. Who are the co-favorites and what are their odds?
So they're all on the same team.
All on the same team this week, at least per the Caesar Sportsbook.
Uh, I'm gonna say it's probably in the JGR camp. Probably uh, Bell, Hamlin, and Briscoe.
And their odds?
Probably probably plus 800 or something.
How about
I'm
you,
gonna
Ryan? What
I'm
was your
gonna throw a
guess?
guess out. Man, the one consistent thing about these plate tracks over the last, I don't know, 2 years has been Team Penske. So if you're saying they're all in the same camp and it's 3 drivers, first thing comes to mind is that 2, 12, and 22. I would say, oh, honestly, plus 850.
Ryan's got you beat this week, Tyler. It is the Penske Trio. They're at plus
Okay.
1,000 to enter this race weekend as your odds on favorites before
I would not have
last.
see what surprised me about that, what threw the curveball there for me was Austin Cindric getting that type of odds. I know he's won the Daytona 500, but that's why I didn't say Penske. I didn't think Austin Cindric would be getting those type of odds.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And when you look at the
I mean,
odds historically,
you,
yeah,
you see Vegas and they see Austin Cindric as someone who's won Daytona like before, and then they go, oh, okay, yeah, he's pretty good. And then they see how he finishes, and then they see his average running position, and then they go, yeah, that's really good.
yeah, certainly a head scratching thing with the odds as we go. Blaney, Cindric, and Logano are each your co-favorites at plus 1,000. Brad Keselowski at plus 1,200. Chase Elliott plus 1,400. Then you have 4 drivers at plus 1,500. Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch, William Byron, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. again plus 1,500. Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson at plus 1,600. Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace at plus 1,800. Chris Buescher and Tyler Reddick at plus 2,000. Chase Briscoe at plus 2,500. Ross Chastain, Carson Hocevar each at plus 3,000. You go down the list. Cody Ware is your longest shot at plus 25,000. I have to tell you too, Tyler, looking at the odds and historical data on this, I think some of these sports books kind of smartened up after last year. Harrison Burton was plus 20,000 or 200 to 1 to win that race in Daytona last year. I think a lot of your longer shots have shorter odds, but also things seem a little more even on the super speeders. Again, I think sports books have gotten burned, like they did with SVG a couple years ago, and they got burned with Harrison Burton last year. You see more of a tighter leash on these odds this time around.
All right, so let's give some picks. Ryan, who you got?
Oh God, put me on the spot. You know, this might be an outside pick depending on everything that we've been talking about. But that one car, that one camp at Trackhouse, Ross Chastain, running top five, a chance to win the Daytona 500 earlier this year. Has another pretty strong run at Talladega. He's a proven winner at Talladega. Obviously not Talladega, but single car speed is there. He's got the drafting help. Who knows? Mellow Man could be there in the end.
Dom, how about you?
I'm going someone too that we haven't mentioned at all during this show. Outside looking in, one of those 22 guys who needs to get it done to make the playoffs. He's been in the playoffs before. He's had single win seasons. Give me Michael McDowell to punch that playoff 2025 ticket on Saturday night.
Ooh, I like that. My pick, this guy's in the playoff right now on points, and a win would certainly make him feel a lot better. He certainly could use it. And he raced very well last week. And he's shown a lot of speed at Daytona in the past. Give me Alex Bowman to
Ooh.
get it done.
Whoa, I was thinking Tyler
Me
Reddick. You
too.
flipped it. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bowman's
that is
strong.
an out of
That's
the
a
box
decent
pick
pick.
there.
You
Yes,
had us
give me
through a
Alex
loop.
Bowman. Bowman the showman gets it done. And
Yeah.
he's going to have 300 cars helping him out, too, all making sure he gets in the playoff.
Oh, he's going to have a ton of help. I guess my question for both of you before we move on here, we know in this next gen era, you have about 20 guys that could win at any given track each week. But with the playbook open, how much it is this Saturday, of the 40 starters, Ryan, how many realistically have a shot to win?
Oh, God. Well, I think we all know that some of the guys who are locked in on points, especially like the William Byrons, the Denny Hamlins, the heck, even SVGs. I don't know SVG. They're probably not going to try to send it. They'll know they don't want to get injured or get in a bad wreck or really just wreck equipment. I would say there's about maybe a dozen guys who
Ooh,
realistically have odds, which is a little bit less for this Daytona race. But if you think about it, we've got two RCR cars pushing Kyle Busch. We've got 300 cars pushing Alex Bowman. We've got all three RFK cars up for it, but if we think about how that team works, they're going to figure out which car's strongest that night, and then they're just going to go all in. Could be Busher. Busher's been really good there. Paris has the speed coming into this, and Keselowski has traditionally been really well at Daytona. Then you got some of the guys who are farther back that are kind of working by their lonesomes, like Ricky Stenhouse and some of the Spire guys like McDowell's going to have some good speed. So I think a lot of these traditional playoff contenders who are locked in right now may not send it as hard. But who knows? You're going for a win and you know your eyes just light up and your head gets spinning and you're just like, there's the checkered flag. I got to get it.
there it is. How about you, Tyler? What's the number? How many drivers can win
I
on
think
Saturday?
it's I think it's 20 because you're going to have guys that crash out, and then the teammate thing for some isn't going to matter, where they're looking at early in the race somebody that they were supposed to help all of a sudden isn't in it now. And so that changes things. And so I would say about half the field. I'd put about 20 cars have a chance to get it done. Um, there you have it. That is our news and notes and picks for this week. Let's get to our mailbag segment. We ask you guys to submit questions to us each and every week. DavidStarPodcast at gmail.com, on X and Facebook at Star Podcast. First question in the inbox this week is for Ryan, and it comes from Billy. Billy wants to know, Ryan, what is your favorite NASCAR memory?
Oof. There's a couple. I would say probably my first race. My first race I attended in person was the 2010 Daytona 500.
Ooh,
Now that was interesting because I got the full NASCAR experience. Got there early, went to the pre-race stuff, watched Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr. talking stage. Got in there, race got underway. Huge red flag for that pothole, and got to see what NASCAR fans were really like for the first time. Some a little overzealous, maybe drunk climbing the fence, but seeing that finish under lights as a 9 year old and having vivid memories of Junior coming up through the field and McMurray winning was really memorable.
classic.
How about you, Dom?
I kind of have to echo that. First NASCAR race going to, seen it on TV for years as a fan, getting to go to the 2009 Subway Fresh Fit 500 at Phoenix as a freshman in high school. Family trip, ton of fun. Saturday night under the lights at Phoenix. And then, of course, you have Mark Martin break his 3 years losing streak, and he started that first win of 5 victories. It led to that runner-up championship competition in 2009 with Jimmy Johnson. Heck of a NASCAR race to go to. That restart at the end. A lot of cool memories surrounding that. You, Tyler?
For me, I was not at this race, but I started watching NASCAR in 2004. I became a Jeff Gordon fan pretty quickly, and seeing him win the Daytona 500 in 2005 and what he did to to pull off that race and the excitement that I was as a kid, that felt like a Super Bowl of sorts. And that was of my NASCAR fandom of being a Jeff Gordon fan. That was the biggest win he had in that stretch. Was that Daytona 500. So that's probably my personal favorites, the '05 Daytona 500 there. Next question in the inbox this week. It comes from Fred. And Fred wants to know um, what is a recommended read you would give to NASCAR fans? And Dom, I will say that anything except the Jeff Bodine book qualifies for this answer here. Although, by all means, plug away with that. What are other books or readings you'd recommend to NASCAR fans?
Tyler's an Earnhardt fan, Ryan. He didn't like the Bodine book. No, Jeff Gordon's book, actually, the Racing Back to the Front memoir, was really good. That was the first NASCAR book I read. And Michael Waltrip's In the Blink of an Eye, I think, are really good introductions to the sport and give you a really big peek behind the curtain as to what he went through racing for Earnhardt and what he went through that day winning and finding out what had happened. Those two immediately come to mind for me. How about you guys?
I would have to
Ryan,
say for
go
myself.
ahead.
Yeah, I would have to say for myself, recent read. I grew up a Gordon fan as well, so I've always followed Hendrick Motorsports and seen what they're doing. And their 40th anniversary book was a good read. I got that for Christmas. And if you just want to have a good in-depth behind the scenes look of how Hendrick Motorsports was formed and just all their success and trials and tribulations, that's a good one. Another general one that I've had for a while, I believe it was NASCAR's 50th anniversary book that they came out with. And especially for a lot of people trying to or learning about NASCAR and getting into the sport, that's a good short history lesson on how things were.
Yeah, those are good answers there, guys. For me, the one that I would recommend, besides the obvious Jeff Bodine book, would be Dale Jr.'s book, Racing to the Finish, was fantastic. That's a very good book, Dale Jr.'s story and all, and that's one I would recommend. But plenty of good readings out there, and now, Dom, we just need to find your next book to write.
Working on another one. I hope I can talk a little bit more about it soon, but I'm well underway working on another book with actually a current race car driver. So look forward to sharing more with that hopefully soon.
I look forward to reading the Cody Ware biography by Dominic Aragon in no time about his win at
And that
Daytona that got him in the playoff.
and that chapter on favorite Arby's foods.
Dom, we got a lot to work with on this Cody Ware book for you.
Yeah, a lot of ideas, a lot of help. If you need any help with that.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not Cody Ware. It's not Cody Ware, but yeah, it'll hopefully be a good read when it comes
So
out.
we've got another book lined up for you then. That's good.
At some
Okay.
point, yeah, it's still in the writing stages, and we made it no secret. The Jeff Bodine book took a while to piece together because we work on it, we wouldn't work on it. This one, I think it's going a little faster pace. And I told Jeff, hey, at any project I work on, you were kind of the guinea pig. We kind of learned what worked and what didn't. So this second one's going a little smoother with what we're doing. So yeah, you live, you learn, and you just chalk it up as experience.
Okay. So we'll circle back to the Cody Ware book down the road. To be continued, as they say. Before we get out of here, what's everybody got going on the next couple days? Ryan, what's new in your world?
Well, I just got back from doing both Woo Sprint nights in Minnesota on Friday and Saturday. So I've been editing photos and been doing that. We got some playoff preview stuff to do after Daytona and some graphics that I've been working on. So just getting more of that stuff done. Looking forward to the next few race outings that I will be attending on behalf of TRE, which will be St. Louis and New Hampshire. And then we'll see about Kansas.
Very nice. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, just kind of echoing what Ryan's saying there too. Our playoff coverage is about to kick off a little more in depth with the racing experts over the next few days and weeks, and we're all kind of dividing and conquering, if you will, with our team coverage and looking to get into be back at the racetrack here over the next few weeks. It kind of backload the schedule this year, so the plan is to be at about 4 playoff races, still kind of determining what the rest of the schedule will look like, but nonetheless, it'll be a nice home weekend this weekend with the family, and we'll just kind of go from there. How about you? Where are you at this week, Tyler? Not your usual background.
No, so I'm visiting family just outside of Tulsa, my hometown of Broken Arrow, the last couple of days. And then I am off to the University of Kansas, where I went to school. They are doing a grand opening for their renovated football stadium this weekend. College football already back. Week 0 this week, Kansas playing Fresno State in prime time on the Fox broadcast network. So, no, I will not be watching the Daytona race live, but I might have it potted up on my phone or catch the highlights later as I'll be at that football game Saturday night. So, that's what I got going on. But should be a fun next couple days ahead. Ryan, plug away. Where can people find you and follow you and see all the work you're doing, man?
Gosh, I only have one at Ryan Kemna, all lowercase, all together on Instagram. That's where I post my photos. Uh, Pretty much just strictly motorsports content right there. But hey, branching out. So we'll see what happens there.
I got to say too, if you want to hire a great graphic designer, somebody who knows what the heck he is doing, and can just make your graphics pop even better, you're looking no further than Ryan Kemna, ladies and gentlemen. Really talented with what he does with his skills with photography, his skills with all the Adobe Suite stuff. He's the real deal.
And if you need someone who is a hype man, Dominic is your guy. Thank you.
There you go.
Speak the truth, Tyler.
Yes. On that note, we will put the checkered flag out in this edition of Let's Go Racing. Subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, also on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. And also check us out on social media at Star Podcast and on X, Facebook, and also by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. And make sure to check out the Studio Soapbox Network. This show, The Jones Report, Coach Bono's podcast, available on all podcast platforms. For Dominic Aragon and Ryan Kemna, I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.